looks like it could be Spare Part 2.
Harry and Meghan had been calling Penguin Random House repeatedly. Where's our royalties? We need our royalties. We'd like more money. And the problem with that is there is no more money.
But this will definitely cause issues at home because Meghan, for sure, doesn't want to pay something like this because, again, I don't think they have the money to endlessly throw at this kind of thing anymore.
He right now is obsessed with going back to the UK.
Something is apparently being discussed in publishing circles right now that Buckingham Palace will not want to hear. Not rumours, not social media speculation, actual conversations according to sources familiar with the publishing world between actual people in the book industry. About a second Harry memoir, Spare Part 2. Harry has always been careful about this, deliberately, surgically careful. He has never said there won't be a second book. What he has said, more than once, in more than one interview, is that what he chose not to put in spare was even more explosive than what he put in. Whether that's true, nobody outside his circle can say. But that statement was never a throwaway line. That was a message, a very specific message, aimed at very specific people, designed to keep a certain door from being shut in his face. For a while, it apparently worked.
Oh no, it might really be happening. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's financial collapse is getting so bad, indeed Paula Frolic Uncensored reporting, they're kind of running out of money, which means the consequence looks like it could be Spare Part 2, which would be a total disaster zone for King Charles and Prince William, given that Harry has always maintained that the information that he is keeping private for the second part of his tell-all book is even more explosive than the first.
Now that truce is starting to look very fragile, because the conversations reportedly happening in publishing aren't happening in a vacuum. They're happening, if sources are to be believed, at a very specific moment. A moment when Harry's finances appear to be under serious pressure, when his legal strategy has collapsed in particularly public fashion, when the income streams that were supposed to sustain this California reinvention appear to be falling short of what was expected, and when, quietly behind closed doors, sources are describing what looks very much like two people pulling in two entirely different directions. All of it connects, and it's worth slowing down and following the thread. Start with the money. Because the money is where everything reportedly begins right now. The legal case against Associated Newspapers, the Daily Mail, is over. Harry lost. All 97 claims dismissed. Mr. Justice Nicholson reviewed the evidence, found it insufficient, and produced a 426-page ruling explaining why.
See right now, and that is Prince Harry after, again, his very, very spectacular loss against the Associated Newspapers, which is essentially the Daily Mail. Harry lost that case with other co-claimants. I believe there were 7 of them overall. And now he and his other co-claimants. So this is not solely on Harry, but because Harry was the most high profile and I feel like aggressive of the campaign. And I feel like in addition to Elton John, Harry was used to rope more people into this case. Harry and his other co-claimants are on the hook for potentially $18 million.
Harry's response was to publicly call it a complete and obvious whitewash. A sitting judge. 426 pages. Whitewash. Whatever one thinks of the case itself, that statement was striking. When you lose that decisively and respond in those terms, it's a signal. Not of someone who believes the system was fair and came to the wrong conclusion, but of someone who has not quite accepted that courts operate differently from a press interview.
For last month, Mr. Justice Nicholson dismissed the full 97 claims against the publisher, saying that there was no evidence. Harry later issued a statement attacking the judge and calling the 426-page ruling a complete and obvious whitewash. The entirely inappropriate statement suggests that he knew better than the judge, the publisher claimed. So the Associated Newspapers is now seeking to recoup costs amassed during the 4 years of litigation. It has asked for an initial payment of £9.95 million, so basically about £10 million, and the claimants have offered $8 million, which they described as generous.
Now comes the financial consequence. Associated Newspapers has applied for indemnity costs, which in practice means they're seeking to lift the cap on what they can recover. The 7 claimants, Harry among them, alongside Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley, Baroness Lawrence and others, collectively hold insurance policies worth £2.7 million each, covering £16.2 million in total. The Daily Mail's actual costs are reported to be considerably higher than that, which leaves a shortfall potentially running into millions that the claimants themselves would need to cover. And there's a further complication. Associated Newspapers has argued that the conduct of the claimants was so outrageous and unreasonable that the case warrants indemnity treatment, meaning they want the court to formally acknowledge this lawsuit should never have been brought. That's not only a financial demand. If the court agrees, it becomes a public finding about the judgment behind the litigation. Harry does not appear to have unlimited resources. This has been the picture emerging from multiple sources for some time.
What we do have to consider as well is that Harry and the other co-claimants, they could also be on the hook for, let's say, not being truthful in some of their testimony or bringing cases that were obviously going to fail. Because if your insurance agent is like, I insured this and this was an obvious case that you should have known would fail, why in the world did you pursue this? I think that is a huge thing to consider here. So this is going to be a really big moment for Harry as he looks down the line at this case and the costs of it. This has been his most spectacular loss, catastrophic in many ways.
Spotify, reportedly worth tens of millions, ended after 1 podcast season. Netflix remains technically active, but several projects that were announced have not materialized in the way that was suggested when the deals were first reported. The animated series Pearl was cancelled. The documentary ran 1 season. Whether the income replacing royal life has arrived at the scale originally implied is, based on available reporting, at best unclear.
No, and by the way, I'm not in the imminent divorce camp either. My view, though, is that financials make up a huge part of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's future considerations, you see.
Well, it also makes up a huge part of their fights and the unhappiness they've been having. So again, Meghan was not 100% on board and not happy for Harry to go ahead with this massive lawsuit against the Daily Mail, specifically because if they lost, which they did, they'd be on the hook for millions. Now, again, tomorrow, Wednesday, is a big old deal.
And then there are the royalties. Spare sold 6 million copies. That's genuinely substantial by any publishing measure. But when a book is heavily promoted, heavily advanced, and sells the bulk of its copies in the weeks immediately following release, the long-term royalty picture doesn't stay encouraging for long. The advance gets paid back first, then royalties begin on whatever is left of the sales curve. When the book has already sold most of what it's going to sell, those royalties don't keep growing. Sources reportedly familiar with the situation have described calls being made to the publisher, asking where the royalties were, whether there was more to come. The answer reportedly was that there wasn't.
Would you want something else? Now, of course, they haven't said what that is. It could be an Eddie Murphy like Coming to America. It could be Lessons I've Learned, or it could be Take Me Back, Pa. But there's definitely some interest, and it's really the only way that Harry himself can make money because he's tried everything else. And right now, he's a little bit cuckolded. Meghan is the one who has brought in the deals. And frankly, no one's going to like to hear this either. But Meghan is the one who made the one deal that could actually pay off very well for them, and that is one-off.
Now, whether that account is accurate is something nobody outside the parties involved can confirm, but the fact that it's circulating from people described as connected to publishing is worth noting, which brings everything back to the book. The idea of a second memoir being floated isn't new as a concept. What's reportedly new is the timing and the nature of the conversations now happening. Sources in publishing are describing interest, feelers, the kind of early-stage conversations that don't confirm anything but do suggest someone is open to having them.
I reported last year that Harry and Meghan had been calling Penguin Random House repeatedly, where's our royalties? We need our royalties. We'd like more money. And the problem with that is there is no more money. They were overpaid for Spare. And while it did sell 6 million copies, 6 million does not equal 20 million in actual profits for him. And there is absolutely no more royalties coming out of this. So I have heard from the same book people that there have been, hey, would you want a separate book?
And feelers of this kind in this industry don't happen in a completely cold room. The logic, if those conversations are real, isn't complicated. Spare sold 6 million copies at a moment when Harry had just walked away from the royal family, the wounds were fresh, and the world was watching. A second book, one Harry has publicly pre-positioned as containing material too explosive for the first, would arrive at a different moment. A moment when, according to multiple sources, the marriage is showing signs of strain. When the California plan appears to be running into significant difficulties. When Harry himself, by various reports, seems to be reconsidering certain things.
But this will definitely cause issues at home because Meghan, for sure, doesn't want to pay something like this because, again, I don't think they have the money to endlessly throw at this kind of thing anymore. So I'm sure he's paid a lot in lawyers' fees already, and now they're looking at more costs. And even though she won her case against the Daily Mail, now she has to pay them much, much more than the two of them ever won. So Harry did win some, I think, against the Sun and other newspapers. But of course, spectacular losing this one might wipe out a lot of those gains, financially at least.
That book would likely sell. And Harry, if sources are correct, appears to understand exactly how much leverage the threat of it carries. Every report of Harry wanting to return to the UK, of conversations with King Charles, of attempting to rebuild family ties. All of it sits in tension with the possibility of a second memoir. A Spare Part 2 and a reconciliation with the palace are not obviously compatible, which means that as long as the book remains unwritten, or at least unpublished, it functions as something else entirely. For those at the palace, that calculus is presumably not comfortable. Because the more difficult Harry's financial situation reportedly becomes, the more attractive the book option reportedly appears. Now, here's the piece of this that appears to be significantly underreported, as ever may not be the main event. Everyone is focused on Meghan's lifestyle brand, the jam, the honey, the spreads, the candles, whether the follower count is up or down, whether the ad in which she appeared to pick blackberries, in a pristine white outfit, apparently unbothered by thorns, apparently unacquainted with the reality that blackberry juice stains dark and doesn't wash out easily, looked convincing.
Pay them. So Meghan Markle, after seemingly forgetting as ever existed for the last 2 months, I want to say, all of a sudden came out with a new spread flavor that comes out on July 30th. And of course, it's blackberry spread. And given that Meghan Markle had a pretty disastrous appearance, I would say, on MasterChef recently, proving yet again that she does not spend any time in the kitchen, and I couldn't help but notice with the ad that came out for As Ever of Meghan Markle picking blackberries, that it looked incredibly fake. I wrote on Twitter, it looks like Meghan Markle attempting to play Meghan Markle attempting...
Spoiler, it didn't, to put it gently. Anyone who has actually picked blackberries tends to recall wearing their worst clothes for exactly this reason. The gap between what that ad was presenting and what picking blackberries actually involves was, to put it charitably, quite significant.
It looked incredibly fake. I wrote on Twitter, it looks like Meghan Markle attempting to play Meghan Markle attempting to advertise for As Ever. It looks fake. Like, the magic of an ad is that you know it's an ad, but it can feel real. There's a connection to it. But I didn't get that sense at all with Meghan's latest As Ever ad. I was watching her going, you look so incredibly fake that it's difficult to fathom. And there's actually a lot of things here. So we used to live in the Pacific Northwest, and blackberry wood bushes would explode in the late summer.
But whether As Ever is performing to expectations may be almost beside the point. Because according to sources familiar with the situation, the more significant financial play is somewhere else.
Actually pay off very well for them, and that is one-off.
This is the clothing.
Now, it's an absurd-looking website. People laugh at it. She's putting up old clothes and things that are sold out or whatnot. And yes, she could get 50,000, 10 or 20% off of 50,000. She doesn't care about that. None of them care about that. None of the other investors, none of the other celebrities like Brooks Nader. What they care about is the technology behind one-off. And the company was actually started by very smart people who are well known in the tech world. They've got good backing from companies like Revolve.
One-Off is a tech fashion resale platform. It was not built by Meghan, so it was built reportedly by technology entrepreneurs with serious experience in the sector and real institutional backing from established players in fashion and retail. What they needed, sources suggest, was visibility, a name that would generate attention and make the platform a story rather than just another startup looking for users. Meghan reportedly provided that. In return, she is said to have received a percentage stake in the company. Estimates put it somewhere between 1 and 2 percentage points. That sounds small. Some observers believe it isn't.
And she owns a percentage of that company, right? So that's
She
why
likely-
it could be
Yes.
a financial boom. The stories about Harry and Meghan, the establishment and the media are working overtime to suppress. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken. Subscribe right now for free if you want the truth straight.
I am hearing that she likely got a point or two, which is, it sounds very small.
But it could be
However,
massive
at the
if
same
it sells to a
massive.
big tech giant.
I have friends of mine in the tech fashion world who did not take any money for their work on a startup. Instead, they took 1 point, and their grandchildren will live off of that one.
The argument goes like this. The business model here, according to people familiar with how these companies operate, isn't necessarily about the platform becoming a consumer success on its own terms. The model, as has played out with similar companies, is that the underlying technology, the infrastructure, the capabilities becomes attractive enough to be acquired by a larger player, by a platform with the budget to buy what it would rather not build from scratch. Those acquisitions, when they happen, tend to happen for significant sums. 1 to 2% of a very large number is a very different proposition from 1 to 2% of a modest one.
Yeah.
However, in California, there is the 10-year rule. But the 10-year rule is usually for people with prenups. And that means prenups are completely 100% valid until 10 years. And then after that, there's common property. And it's a little bit more complicated than that, but they don't have a prenup. So it's all common property. And everyone in California right now is looking for what they're calling it the Ben Affleck deal. So for example, a couple months ago, Ben Affleck sold, and it was not his company completely. It's the same deal that Meghan has with One-Off. He had points in a company, an AI company that was then sold, and he made hundreds of millions of dollars off of it. Everybody wants that. It's passive income. It's passive money. They just said, sure, put my name on that. You can use my name to publicize.
Whether this plays out for One-Off specifically is something no one can know at this stage. It's a bet. But it's a bet that people with knowledge of the tech sector describe as at least coherent. Because it's a model that has worked before multiple times for people who position themselves similarly. If it works, the BlackBerry spread becomes irrelevant. That, according to some commentators, may be the point. As for As Ever itself, there are observers who believe the picture is more complicated than it appears.
It's going to be interesting because the thing is, Paula, it will be, I think, frustrating if the clothing website does really take off. Because if you look at As Ever, for example, or Was Never, as Lady Colin Campbell called it, it's just a total disaster. The Royal News Network pointing out that the follow account of As Ever is declining again. She says that's not a surprise, adding that Meghan herself seems to have forgotten about her Instagram during the summer holiday, and she's running an ad for something she does not have in stock. If this is going to be their main source of income, she needs to figure out how to make it work. And like Paula, I mean, this is astonishing. It's amateur hour stuff. The mistakes are nuts. And the fact that, I mean, it's not even like she's got that many followers given the huge nature of that.
The limited edition Mother's Day chocolate, launched in April, is reportedly still available in August. For a limited edition product, that's not a good signal by conventional retail standards.
And again, she's still trying to sell the signature chocolate box that was supposed to be sold out by Mother's Day. It's still available. It's almost August. Mother's Day was early May. This product dropped in April. It should be gone by now because it's a limited edition set. And guess what? It's still in stock. Guys, it's never good if you're limited edition. If you can't sell it out, you got problems. And Meghan, very seriously, has problems here. So I totally forgot about the honey. That's the thing, guys. Her products anymore are so forgettable that, like, who cares? And I come back to something very simple, which is if you're not passionate about your products, you're not passionate about what you're selling.
The follower count on the brand's Instagram has reportedly been declining. Meghan appeared to go largely quiet on the account for a significant portion of the summer, but some analysts have pointed out something worth considering. In the United States, a company can operate at a loss for an extended period and receive meaningful tax advantages for doing so, as Eva is approximately 2.5 years old, by that reckoning, sitting roughly in the middle of the window in which those advantages apply.
Dan, this is a tax play. So in the United
Meghan.
States, yes, of course, for Meghan. In the United States, you are allowed to run your company at a loss for 5 years. And in that 5 years, it's fine. You get all the tax breaks. After 5 years, that's when the hammer hits. It's only been 2.5 years now. So she's got another X amount of time to sunset as ever and flip it into something else where they can run, I don't know, everything out of the next company and run it as a tax loss. So that's fine. And you can tell she's not into it, right? Every single photo, all those photos of her holding the basket and her walking and the videos, whatnot, they're from the original Netflix shoot.
The suggestion from some observers, and this is analysis, not confirmed strategy, is that As Ever may be functioning as much as a broader brand platform as a traditional food business. That the losses, if losses they are not necessarily the disaster they look like at face value. That the transition from one vehicle to the next, a cookbook perhaps, or the next brand extension, is the actual plan, and As Ever provides the structure during the transition. Whether that's what's actually happening is something Meghan and her team have not confirmed. It may be a generous reading of a brand that's simply struggling, but the analysts making the argument aren't without logic. What is harder to argue is that MasterChef Australia went as hoped. The ratings by available figures were underwhelming given the level of publicity the appearance generated. The show used to draw peak audiences significantly larger than what that episode delivered. Reviews noted that Meghan didn't appear entirely at ease with the food elements.
Because
dear
the
God.
reviews and the ratings
Yes.
are in and are bad. I also like this from the Royal Grift, who posted, you always hear about these stories of people shapeshifting. I think this was a moment. There is something truly demonic going on here, and it's not AI. I would certainly say the producers were not trying to protect her in the edit, put it that way. Alexander Lahman in The Spectator writing, there is only one reason Meghan went on MasterChef Australia: money. And in whatever happens, the Sussexes will be looking around for yet more money-spinning opportunities, such as MasterChef Australia, in the coming weeks and months to pay the no doubt considerable bill, referring to the legal case. Meghan left the programme, Trilly and I have loved every second of being here. She will be hoping, for the sake of the family accounts, that the feeling has been.
The edit, by most accounts, was not especially flattering. The argument that the appearance was about positioning for a cookbook rather than the cooking competition itself may well be true, but if so, the positioning came at a reputational cost that some observers think wasn't worth it. Now here's where the two halves of this story reportedly collide. While Meghan appears to be building her American business structure, one off, the potential cookbook, the brand pivots, Harry is doing something that sources suggest makes limited strategic sense if both of them are committed to the California plan. He apparently wants to go back.
He right now is obsessed with going back to the UK. He wants to spend more time in the UK. He wants to try to find reasons to go back as often as he can. But here's the catch. Meghan has come out and said that he will not, like we already knew this, but Harry will never be able to go back to the UK with the children without her. Okay, this is where it all begins, because the key word here was that Harry is obsessed. He is obsessed with going back, and Meghan is saying, no, you're not going to go back with the children without me.
Multiple reports describe Harry as eager, even by some accounts preoccupied, with the idea of returning to the United Kingdom more regularly. Not just for isolated visits, but for something closer to a sustained presence. reports suggest he's concerned about the children's connection to Britain, and that this concern has become more acute as the children grow older, settle into American schools, and develop what sources describe as increasingly American identities.
I don't want that. So let me ask you this. How do you make it work? Because part of the reason why Harry wants to go back is so that his children can take in the culture and be more British. That is what Harry wants right now. And Meghan is already seeing that the children are planted solely in America. They have American accents. They are more American. And Harry is starting to wake up and realize, hold up, wait a minute. I want my children to be British-like now. But it's like, it's too late. The kids are starting to go to school. They are going to be more ingrained into the American culture, especially once they are in the educational system. Within, starting in first grade and second and so on. So it's like Harry is waking up to the idea that he has to do it now. It's for him, it is an emergency.
The window, as some sources frame it, is not open indefinitely. Once children are embedded in an educational system, in friendships, in a cultural context that becomes their anchor. The concern, if reports are accurate, is that this is happening faster than Harry anticipated.
Just Harry. Harry is desperate to go back. Now, Harry is desperate to return to the UK and the king is prepared to help. But Meghan Markle and other royals are against the idea. So we have King Charles right now trying to help Harry, saying that we'll give you a place to stay when you come back in September for the Well Child Awards.
King Charles, by multiple accounts, is open to some version of Harry spending more time in Britain. He has reportedly offered use of royal properties. He is said to want to see his grandchildren. Whether that openness translates into any formal arrangement is a different question, because William, Camilla, and other senior members of the family are, according to sources, considerably less enthusiastic about any such arrangement.
William, who, by the way, is basically in charge of the royal family, is not the king. It's William. No way. Camilla doesn't want it. Anne doesn't want it. Edward doesn't want it. None of them want it. And this is what Kevin O'Sullivan was saying on his channel. And that's so true, because Harry really wants to spend more time in Britain. But Meghan is like...
Meghan's position, by multiple reports, is that she does not want to return to Britain in any ongoing capacity. She went recently and quietly with minimal public visibility, and apparently considered that to satisfy whatever expectations existed on her side. She is back in America. Harry, according to sources, is already thinking about the next visit. Meghan is reportedly not keen.
But here is the other catch. Meghan doesn't want to go back. One of the things that Meghan said that came out in the news was that when she went to the UK, she was very quiet. She was very much hidden. No one knew if she was there or not. She was a very good girl. She was a good girl. No one knew that she was there. And so she is looking at that as a way of being upholding her end of the bargain. And now that they're back in the States, or at least Meghan is, Harry is trying to get the next trip underway. Like, he wants to go back now for the winter break. And Meghan doesn't want to go back.
There is reportedly no prenup. In California, that means everything acquired during the marriage is treated as community property. The one-off stake, if it pays out, would, under California law, be considered a shared asset. Harry's legal liabilities could be considered similarly. Every financial decision made by one of them has implications for the other.
But how does Californian divorce law work in that instance? Because can I just paint a picture to you? Which is not what people were expecting, of course, because people were expecting that actually, because there's no prenup, our understanding is there's absolutely no prenup. So the understanding was always that, Meghan would be wanting to get half of Harry's money. But let's just go with your quite disturbing potential scenario, because of course I think we'd all find it pretty desperately sad if Meghan Markle ended up getting some 300 million payout or whatever for this clothing website. But just say it did happen, does Harry get access to 50% of that money if there is a Californian divorce?
Yes, of course.
California also has a 10-year rule that affects how courts approach long-term spousal support cases. Harry and Meghan married in 2018. They are inside that window. The legal and financial entanglement deepens with time. This isn't to say divorce is imminent, or that sources claiming friction are correct, or that what sources describe as diverging goals means the marriage is heading in any particular direction. Marriages are complicated. Public reports about marriages are often incomplete or wrong. But what is observable from travel patterns, from public appearances, from the direction of their respective projects, is that Harry and Meghan appear to be spending more time on separate paths than their public narrative would suggest. Whether that's pragmatic or something more significant is a question the available information cannot answer. One last thing worth sitting with before the conclusion. Jamila Jamil, a vocal public supporter of Meghan, someone who appeared on Meghan's own podcast to describe having fought back on her behalf before they'd even met, recently went on camera and described British people as the most evil people in history. On camera. Those were the words used.
Is now calling all of us Brits evil. The most evil people in the world. Watch this.
I'm so lucky to have been a part of that show. It was so well written. And Meghan Amram as well is one of the lead writers on that show who just wrote the shit out of Tahani. And so together we all crafted her. But I just had to make her more of a bitch. They wanted her to be very sweet because Americans think British people are so sweet, which is crazy because British people are truly the most evil people in history. Like, they are Thanos. Britain is Thanos.
Go to a museum, guys.
Yeah, they owe 43 trillion to India.
Maybe go to Shelter Firehouse and leave there and be like, wait, was that girl mean to me? Like, everyone's mean.
But we colonized the world.
Or just the artifacts in the museums. I'm like, why is that not in Africa? Yeah.
And at this same moment, there are reports circulating that Meghan is fully behind reconnecting with the royal family and rebuilding ties with Britain. Both things are apparently happening simultaneously. They don't fit together easily. Either the people Meghan has chosen to platform hold views about Britain that are incompatible with a genuine desire to reconnect, or the reconnection narrative is being managed for reasons that have less to do with genuine sentiment.
So I just think this is quite interesting, Paula, that at the same time you have Meghan Markle accepting she has to come back here. Remember, she told Omid Scobie she was never going to set foot in the UK again. Here are her mates saying Brits are the most evil people in the world. Personally, my view, and this is a view, is that that's the type of conversation that Meghan Markle has with her friends.
And more to do with strategic positioning. The financial case for a UK return, at least for Harry, is not hard to see. The royal connection offers legitimacy that California hasn't been able to manufacture independently. It opens certain doors. It may also, some observers suggest, make certain other things. A second memoir, for example, less likely to happen if the relationship is being actively rebuilt. Whether that calculation is being made consciously by anyone involved is something only the people in those rooms can say. What's visible from the outside is that the public narrative and the observable reality have been running on increasingly different tracks for some time now. Here's where all of it lands. Harry and Meghan arrived in California with a plan that appeared, at the time, at least coherent. Leave the institution, build something independent, generate enough income that the royal connection became optional, control the narrative. By available reporting, that plan has fallen significantly short of what was projected. The money appears to be under pressure in ways that weren't publicly anticipated. The legal strategy produced a high-profile loss and a substantial bill. The media projects have underperformed relative to the expectations created when the deals were announced. The lifestyle brand appears to be operating on different terms than its launch suggested. And two people who presented themselves, and were presented by others, as a unified front, appear by multiple accounts to be looking at considerably different futures. Harry reportedly sees the UK his children with some connection to Britain, some version of what was walked away from, on better terms. Meghan reportedly sees America, her brand, the technology investment that may or may not pay out, a future that doesn't require a palace.
I think that's what we're seeing now with Meghan and Harry. They don't want to make it official. We've heard rumors, or we've heard stories from Lady C that, Harry is in love with another woman and that this woman is in love with him and that Meghan knows about it. And it makes so much sense because they are trying to hold on to not make it official, They're trying to save the brand. They're trying to save how they are going to continue as a couple while making money. While behind the scenes, it's all shattered. It's similar to what we've seen before with Diana and Charles. And so we are in a very pivotal time of Harry and Meghan's relationship where they're trying to maintain the facade that all is good. Their desires, their goals, their purpose in life for the children and for their independence.
Somewhere, reportedly, there's a manuscript already written, waiting. The question isn't whether Harry will use it. The question is what offer, if any, would make using it unnecessary. Drop a comment with where you think this is heading. Is there a version where Harry gets some kind of arrangement with the UK? Or is that door already closed regardless of what Charles wants? Like this video if it helped connect things you weren't seeing in the same place. Subscribe to stay close. This story is nowhere near finished.